We recorded various introductions for this new show, but somehow we ended up loving a rehearsal shoot. It's unedited with a fan making noise in the background, and we felt it represented what we want to give our audience. Real life that can be messy and imperfect sometimes, but still possessing opportunities for us to rise, shine, and thrive. What are we doing? Dry run, dry run. Oh yeah, dry run. I'm not ready. Oh gosh. Cons here, still wet. Anyhow, let's do this. Glasses on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Sharon Perry, and welcome to The Chat, a show dedicated to real conversations. Sometimes these subjects may be a little tougher and harsher, but then we're also going to have some softer stories. The team and I thought it was important that the first episode should be dedicated to the person who inspired it all, Dean Squires. A few months back, I guess, he and I had a very informal conversation, and then it morphed into this whole thing. He was very encouraging. So, Dean's story, wonderful, wonderful. Young boys and young girls should hear what he has to say. So grab them, sit back, relax, and once again, Chatmoji and I, and you'll meet Chatmoji. We welcome you to the chat. So these squares.
Yes, please, Sharon Perry. Long time.
That is true, and you know it's interesting because it's like I guess like a full circle moment because we are here at Queen's College. I mean, we went to school, not here. We come from a different campus. We come from the original.
Yeah, we
campus.
started there. We started there.
But the point is, we are back together at QC, chatting. And I'm glad that you decided to have a chat with me today because I remember in school days who Dean Squares was.
Oh, no.
And I know who Dean Squares is now.
Oh, thank you. Yes, is
But
now.
I think it's important that we talk about the journey of Dean from one point to this point. So
Yeah.
Queen's College.
Well,
Dean Squares coming into Queen's College. We need to
Yeah.
understand what was happening there.
yeah, you got to understand it coming in. So, before we met at QC, picture this. I'm a young boy from the countryside, parish of St. John, that's in the country, the rural area of Barbados, on the eastern side. And I'm actually a model student, mainly because of academics, strong academics, but also I'm physically bigger than actually all the students at that point in time.
I remember.
So that has a play in it as well. But a very focused, dedicated, and also a normal boy with a lot of energy, what people might call a little mischievous, but you know, a little prank here or there, a little rough play. And coming into a school like Queen's College, where for me, it was a big and a serious transition. Because one, the first thing that hit me is where I live, we did a lot of walking. That's how we got around. We did a lot of walking. And then even coming to school, it was public transportation for me. So when I get to this school now, and I see it felt like every other student except me rolling in a vehicle, a car, and even back then, some expensive looking cars. And I was like, whoa, what is going on here? But in my context, I felt like in my neighborhood, I felt like we were pretty well off. We were not poor or anything. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
When I saw what was going on here at this school, even from the beginning, I was like, whoa, boy, I poor, yeah. Like I real poor. When I saw like even the lunches that persons would have at lunch, I was like, whoa, that's my lunch for me every week, yeah. You know? And that was intimidating. But my natural instinct is to blend and interact with persons, to socialize and build relationship. So I said, well, at least whether rich or poor, I can still mix with people.
Yeah.
But it felt like these lines were drawn, never discussed, but it felt like certain groups kept to themselves or just rule with themselves, stick to themselves, and I personally felt like an outcast. That's the honest to God truth. But for me, it's like, well, outcast or not, I am not going to be a loner. I'm going to mix with you all. And I felt like there was a pushback. Nothing official was said, nothing even negative was said, but as they might see it now, there was a vibe that like, all right, you're not actually welcome here. And like for me, then that crossed a line personally, because my thing is, anytime you make me uncomfortable, I am gonna make you extra uncomfortable. And usually that would become or transition into something physical. So the combination of naturally liking rough play and then not feeling like you're welcome resulted in some behavior that the school was not accustomed to.
So this is then where being Squires the troublemaker came about.
Basically, and back then though, I didn't see myself as a troublemaker at all. I just saw myself as someone who plays rough and tough. And if you cross a line with me, then yeah, I'm gonna deal with you in a way that you will never ever cross that line again, like immediately. That was not good for a school context, and especially a school like the one that we were at. It was definitely not good. And within the first year, I'm in first form, I had to be meeting with at first the form teacher, and I don't know if you'll call it a promotion or demotion, but then I was a bit too much for her to handle, and she sent me up to, I think it was the year level teacher.
But this means first form, this means that you were 11.
Well,
11, 12.
12, yeah. It started at 11 and head into 12, yeah. Yeah. Well, and then, believe it or not, within our first year of school, I was then sent to the deputy principal. So I didn't understand the seriousness of such transitions.
Yeah.
It's only now with my experience and knowledge that I could look back and saw that, like, whoa, I was some trouble for real. And then even within first form, there was one incident and I was sent to the principal now. And the principal, and interestingly enough, it was an incident involving a second former. So that was like I don't know how they were viewing it, but it wasn't like an older student picking on a younger student. It was a younger student being a bit rough with the second.
When you say picking, let me get the language right here.
Yeah.
Because I think one term might come in my mind, and that is being a bully.
Ooh, yeah.
So would you say at that point in time that is what you were doing? Be honest.
I wouldn't want to say it, but yes, that's a very fitting term, a bully. But I know you shouldn't put a but there, but it was a bully. When I look at it, I see someone as a bully as someone who would go and pick on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
I found for me, I would pick on people that would be, let me call it, outside of that would be bigger than me or supposed to be tougher than me. And as I look at it from now, I saw it as I needed that challenge, that I am the baddest here. I didn't see it then, but that's exactly what was happening. And even in one instance, that caused me to be in front of the principal, it was a second former, and I got really aggressive, and I used a chair at the time, and that was one of those wooden chairs at school.
A chair?
Yeah, a chair. And for the context of school, The principal was not accustomed to that, and she had a very serious conversation with me, and she used a term, right? That term really, it hurt my feelings because it was a very negative term, not like an expletive or anything, but in the context of badness, that's the term that they might use now. It was a negative term, and for me it was like, oh, so that's what you gonna call me, or that's how you see me? Well, you know gonna see badness. And that was first form, you know. And if you follow, or if the school, because a lot of things that were dealt with at school never reached the general population, or other students never knew about it. But if they were to trace it, they realized like he was giving trouble in first form, but then after first form, it just went ridiculous. And that's how it was for me. And that's with the background of being a model student just a year or months before, just a couple terms before being a model student.
So it seems to me that with all that you've said, that you seem to have had a problem adjusting to being in this new environment, because that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, definitely it was a problem adjusting, and that's the thing about it though. You myself being in the living it out, I ain't seeing it as a problem. I ain't even know I got a problem. And persons just dealing with the behavior, right? The behavior. They didn't even, well, at least it didn't felt like they were even trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, rules are rules. You broke rules, so you got to deal with consequences. Yeah. I don't know if they did any background checks to see, well, look, this is not characteristic of this young man from looking at his primary school reports. He is a model student. Why is he behaving like that? So they gave me my consequences, and for me back then is like, if you're a man, you can take your consequences, but I'm gonna come again, and I'm gonna come rougher and tougher. And that did not go well for the school, nor for myself looking back at it, you know, with a more mature perspective.
So obviously, I mean, we said this at the beginning, you're a completely different person now.
Yeah.
So what was that pivot moment for you? What was the moment that took you from trouble-free Dean onto the path that brought you to where you are now?
It wasn't an immediate moment, but the result was not an immediate result, but the moment was, I was recruited by some friends to play for the school's basketball team. The reason why the friends recruited me, these were friends, I don't know if they will get to watch this video, but these were friends that were from what we would call a bad man area, a rude boy area. And I don't know what they saw in me, but in looking back, they had to see my toughness and how I don't back down from no one.
And this was to play for Queen's College?
Yeah, for the school team.
Oh.
So I didn't know about a game of basketball, but what I knew about was, or what I saw it as, was an opportunity to beat people in a way that is allowed and will be congratulated. And that was my role. I wasn't checking for points. I wasn't checking for anything. I just come on, and whoever looked like they're, you know, scoring a lot or being from the opponents that look a bit intimidating for my team, and I would feed off of my teammates because they know the game. So I would watch how they're reacting to a certain person, and when they get frustrated, like this guy keeps scoring or whatever, for me that was my cue. They didn't tell me anything, but that was my cue. One hard foul.
You should have played rugby.
Yes, actually, right? Actually. What I discovered was in basketball you are limited to 5 fouls, and on top of that, if you foul too hard, you could get ejected from the game, and that forced me. Well, almost every game I would foul out. That's the truth. I couldn't control or resist the temptation to limit it to 5 fouls, but more likely rugby, a sport like rugby, would have been adequate for me. And why that was a changing point, right? It allowed me to express myself aggressively and get out a lot of deal with a lot of the tension that I was dealing with on the inside, but in a way that was allowed. So like when you, in the school context, when I hit somebody hard, I gotta go to the principal office. I can get suspended or whatever the case. In
But
basketball,
again,
when they hit somebody just as hard or even harder, you get a foul, one person a foul, and you might get a look from the person like boss man with that boat, you know, and the game would go on. And that was important for me because it helped me to deal with the tension inside as well as express myself aggressively. And that was the turning point initially. But if you look at the process, what happened was we then got an actual coach. Coach came over was doing an internship. And the coach now began to somehow see me as more than just a guy who's gonna come on and intimidate people and foul you hard. He began to get on like I'm actually a basketballer. And in my mind, it's like a basketballer? I mean, I play basketball, but I'm not a basketballer. And somehow,
defense.
his view of me, I didn't know it was happening. I began to see myself how he was seeing me. And as a result, like each game that I fouled out, he would show this level of disappointment. Like, Dean, you know that you only got 5 fouls. We told you got 4. We even sub you. We put you back on. And then it felt like I felt a positive kind of pressure. Well, it felt pressure. It's only looking back that I saw it as positive, where I have to discipline myself enough that I cannot get ejected from a game or I can't get fouled out. And it was that view of myself, that view from the coach that then I took on for myself, that when I look back, that was the beginning of me exhibiting self-control and discipline that then began to shape me into being the person that people now celebrate.
So he basically was like a mentor.
Yes, he definitely was, because after he saw me as that now, and I began to embrace what he was seeing, he then began to spend time actually coaching me now, like on a one-on-one basis, not because of favoritism, but I was that horrible that it was like a remedial coaching that he was doing. I was so behind the other basketballers that he had to pull me out. I spent time with me one-on-one to help me develop to catch up.
But the reality is, if you think about it, because he decided
Yes.
to spend that time, that would have said volumes.
Yes, well, I didn't see it as that then, but when I look back, I see it as like, cheese on, brothers. I enjoying this gear, just following people, because as a person help you to increase your capacity or your competence, more responsibility is placed on you now. So things that I could, get away with before because I didn't know any better, as he helped me, then now I know better, so you can't get away with that. So it felt like a whole load now was also being placed on my shoulders. But once again, with my personality, the heavier the load, I'm not backing down. I'm not running. I'm going to stand up or man up, and I'm going to go after this.
So would you say that at this point in time when you were, getting entrenched in basketball, that all the bad behavior stopped then? Or did you still have some more road to travel?
Yeah, it did not stop. And as I say, it was a transition. It did not stop. But what happened now is I had to pick and choose. Like every situation, I really thought it through and saw where this was going to lead to and what might be the outcome. And the only thing, check this, the only thing that I was weighing in my decision making, will this get me basically taken off the school team, or would I be able to continue playing? So most of the things that I would have been known for would be things that would get me taken off of the school team. So I had to then leave certain things alone in a public way, turn away from certain things, and
because clearly basketball started to become important to you.
Very important. What I get to realize though, it wasn't the sport of basketball itself, but it was the relationship and expectations that came from the coach, which also then transferred to the players. And then I realized how peer pressure, mentorship from the coach and peer pressure from teammates can go a long way in helping a person.
But I remember you had said to me there was a point in time that you thought basically your basketball career was at the end.
Wow.
Something like that.
So by then, after the work the coach put in me, working with me, I moved up the basketball ranks at a rate that I'm tempted to say was unprecedented. So within 1 year, I was the most improved player and also onto the junior national program. Within 2 years, I was once again the most improved player in Division 1 this time, because before it was Division 2. And I was also the captain of the combined schools program, and then a possible starter in the junior national program. So that was amazing. And when I saw the effect and impact that I was having, and especially now with the junior national program, it was like even more responsibility placed on me. But the coach now wasn't seeing me as just a basketballer. He was actually seeing me as like not only his captain, but he was seeing me as a scholarship potential, a basketball scholarship. So training for that was like on another level. And once again, the training got harder and harder, but for me, bring it on, I'm gonna step up, man up, and I'm gonna go after it. And that's what I did. And it was like the last year of my eligibility for the scholarship, at least if I understood how the scholarship worked, I was figuring it was my last year, because by I started late, I was behind the others in terms of age-wise, well, ahead of the others. And I, playing in the tournament, I got injured, capitulate now, got injured, and the doctor's report was basically that my basketball career was at an end, and even if it would work out that I could play again, I would go through like a year of rehab. And that was like horrible news for me. That was like, by then basketball was the only thing in my life that I valued or took seriously, and all the benefits that I was seeing around me or in my life came through my basketball experience. So that was like ridiculous news, the end. I don't know if you would call it depression back then, but I was not in a good place. And it worked out that my parents, while in hospital recovering from surgery, my parents brought a Bible. You can imagine that, a Bible for me, because I tell myself like Bible is a book of stories. I ain't need the stories right now. I hear at the end with all this bad news, and you can bring a book of stories. But there's nothing like recovering in a hospital room, being bored, that will force you to read. And I began reading the Bible, and what I discovered was that it was not a book of stories, but this is like some real things that actually happened. So I took it as a challenge again to like reach out and see if this God that they talk about in the Bible really can help my situation with healing. And I said a prayer back then, which honestly was for me just a trick to get to be able to play basketball again. And then I gone and I made a commitment that if I was healed and would be able to play basketball again, I would serve God with my entire life for the rest of my life, basically.
And you said it was a trick.
But it was a trick because in my mind, as soon as I could play basketball again, you see that God thing and all that, I go on with that, I go back playing ball. But
so clearly you didn't know that you can't trick God.
I didn't know that vows with God God can hold you to your vow that you made to Him. Yeah, and that's where so basketball was the initial, I don't know if you call it intervention, but how I see it as basketball began to help me to cultivate the discipline and the focus and the self-worth and viewing myself as more than just a bad boy or a rude boy, and to see some higher value in myself. But then the God component is what then caused me to actually live out, discover my God-given purpose and live out that purpose. And that's when the true meaning of life to me I experienced.
All right, so obviously now we're in 2023, so we can just fast forward to where you are, the programs that you have in place. I mean, Combined Faith, Shoot for Life, you are doing some fantastic things with young men and young women. So share some of that. What are you doing?
So let me look at it this way. Basketball, in my context from school, was my intervention to save me from a guaranteed path of destruction. However, when I look at it closely, basketball and how important it was to me really and truly stopped me from giving trouble publicly. But those in my inner circles know that the trouble did not stop completely. There was a lot of things still happening, but they would never reach the public or reach the school authorities. However, when the God component came in, I realized there was a hard change now. And not only my outward and public behavior, but on the inside, I wasn't about certain things at all anymore. There would be temptations, but it was like, nope, not about that. And I said, well, definitely, if this worked for me, this can work for others, especially persons that we label as like at-risk youth, troubled youth, and those kind of persons. I said, this can work. But for me, I didn't have a model of this happening. I didn't have, some organization or group to look to see how to do this. And what I felt like was God was telling me, but this is what I'm calling you to do. Step out and do it. So as a result, to me, I had no choice but to actually step out, not knowing what I was going to do or how to do it, but I knew what happened in my life. And I actually started right back at the same school, which was Queen's College. So I graduated, but the year I graduated, then it worked out. That was the year, that was the last term that the school coach was going to be there. So it was now a void or vacancy there. And I came in the following term, in term 1, and I volunteered to coach the basketball team. Now, mind you, I'm coaching players that I'm only about 1 year ahead of them. Some, according to what part of the school year you're born, then it might be even basically in my age group. But the level of respect that they had for me from my former way of behaving at school, but also they saw the change as well. There was a level of respect that was there, and therefore starting to coach there. And this is what amazed me. The guys now who would have now be the ones giving the trouble at the school, I saw the same thing begin to happen in their lives using the basketball as well. It reached the point that the school's guidance counselor, who spent so many hours trying to help me when I was a student, and saw what had become of me, she was so impressed that she began now, that was like part of her own interventions for troubled children, troubled students. She would call me and say, Dean, I have another one for you. And I knew what that meant immediately. So I would go over and let the person know, look, I need you to be part of my basketball program. Now, the person being at school knew who I was a couple years before. So if I tell them I need you to be a part of my basketball program, in their minds, they have no choice but to be part of my basketball program. As years went on, though, that intimidation factor was no longer part of my life. So when I come to someone, I came more with the approach that I see value in you as a person, but we can help you to discover and maximize your potential using the sport of basketball. And as a result, that's how Combine Faith really started and came about. Yeah.
And the thing is, I have seen you in action. I have seen you as the coach, and that's what your boys and girls, and I mean there's some mature people in there, call you coach.
Yeah, coach, yeah.
And I think what amazed me the last time that we were at the YMCA, with rain pelting down, and these students still turning up for basketball practice in spite of the fact that the rain just pouring down. And I just thought to myself, that says a lot, because most Bajans don't leave home in rain.
Yeah.
But you just had these cars turn up with these boys and moms driving them saying, coach, we at basketball practice. But obviously they couldn't play and stuff. But I also want you to talk about, because I know it's new for you, but it's important as well for girls. Because you've talked about boys, but you've now started coaching girls. And you've just started a tournament with these girls. And I remember when it started, the numbers that you had
Yes, yes.
and the numbers that you have now, two completely opposite things. So talk about this this new part of your coaching repertoire.
So I'm gonna give a little background context. In the, I was gonna say in the school context with teenage boys, but I realized that it's even in grown adult men as well. You will see changes in behavior when girls are around. And to the point that I concluded, back in this was my teenage mindset, that if you got the girls rolling with you, you can get the fellas to line up. This was a teenage brain processing what was going on there. So when it was time now for me to really try to help young men in terms of using basketball, I realized that you can go help young ladies as well. Because if you have these boys, young men going in one direction, and girls come pushing something or, you know, pushing a vibe, telling them to go in that direction, a good few of the fellas will leave this direction and go in that direction. So if I can have both girls and boys agreeing that let us go in this direction, to me I got a win-win on all levels. So that was really my initial thinking when I first started the first girls program back then, and I saw it grow into, and this was still at school, and that grew into a nice, successful program. But then I discovered that years after, girls basketball on a whole was really not in the best of places. Then I also realized that girls' behavior and issues that one time we would say, well, that's a boy issue, boys are at risk, and whatever the case, girls are exhibiting similar behavior and with similar mindset. So I said, whoa. So when I saw the situation with the girls, I said, well, look, you're gonna have to start a girls program. You're gonna have to go after it. You might not understand the mindsets, no, the mentality, but you're gonna have to go after starting a girls program. And for me, once again, I knew it was gonna be a challenge, but I decided I'm gonna still go after it. I'm gonna go after it. And that's exactly what I did. Step out by faith, not knowing what the response was gonna be like, because we don't have an indoor facility that we have access to. So it's gonna be out in the hot sun. And these last couple of days or months actually has felt like the hottest month. So I'm like, whoa, which girls are gonna come out to train in this hot sun? And we tried it. We started out, and I was amazed. I expected I would have to run a couple of sessions first before I reached double digit figure in terms of number of girls. And in the first one, we actually had 15 girls come out. And I said, whoa, this is great. I said, well, let me try it again. We tried it again, and in the next one, we went past 15 and we jumped up to 28. I said, whoa, that is serious growth in 2 sessions. So what happened was, what I thought would have taken weeks or possibly a couple of months happened in 2 sessions, which then put me in a position where it's like, yeah, you really can go take girls basketball seriously. So from then, I decided I would put a little structure to it where we have practice sessions to train them up skill-wise and help them to understand the game better, and then look to go after a tournament. The response had been so positive, encouraging, uplifting.
Look, you got basketball happening. Looks like no.
Yes. Basketball happening. Just mentioning it. So we decided we will give the tournament a try. Now the thing about it is, before, when we are starting, especially with persons now starting out, we used terms like a basketball rally or basketball competition, because tournament just seems like on another level and could be intimidating. But we said, look, we gotta find out where the girls are at. We're gonna have a basketball tournament. We are gonna label it a tournament, promote it as a tournament. And that's exactly what we did. We pushed the tournament, and the girls responded. The girls stepped up to the plate and responded. And we were aiming a minimum of 32 girls, we were saying, but we said let us aim at 50. but we know that 32 is really the number that we could work with.
So you will have right now it's
Four teams of at least 8 girls. And we have 42 girls. We aim at 32 and we have 42 girls, which means that we gone past, way past. And it has me feeling so encouraged to see the response from the ladies. So the tournament, we branded it Shoot for Life, because for us it's more than just basketball. We're trying to help persons to discover their God-given purpose and go after fulfilling that. So don't just shoot hoops, don't just shoot basketball. We would then shoot for life, as in beyond basketball. We want to help you develop as a person to go on to live your life in the best way that you can.
So I have a question, because obviously these things require funding.
Oh.
So if people out there are willing to help your programs, put some money into what you're doing, because you're doing fantastic things. You provide the girls with uniforms, and obviously you have to purchase basketballs, etc. How can people reach out to you if they want to invest in your programs?
The quickest way would be via, if they have like WhatsApp or Telegram. And my number, the area code is 246. And my number is 822-3222. So 246-822-3222. Or if you're more like a social media where you're using either Instagram or Facebook, the organization is Combined Faith. Combined Faith, and that's our actual handle. Combined Faith, just one long word, I think you would call it. Yeah. So that's at Combined Faith, COMBINED Combined Faith, and you can get us there.
Okay, cool. So one last thing, because I think this has become your trademark.
I know. I didn't know you were gonna go there, but as you mentioned it, I know where you're going. Yes.
I want you.
Yes.
To close this off with the only way that the Squires can do it. So go right ahead.
Yes. I must give a little context. For us, I discovered that's called like giving praise to God, the highest praise. And for me, I boast that I'm a soldier, even a God soldier. So I needed something that sounded more like a soldier kind of war cry. And what I did was I took the traditional hallelujah, and rather than say it in the more kind of subdued church way, yeah, I made it into my battle cry basically. So I usually hit my chest, to let you know coming from the heart, and then I raise the hand like triumphantly, yeah, and then I go hallelujah, and I usually hold it to let that echo kind of just rip through the airways at frequencies that can send a strong message like God giving you big praises for what you have done with my life and allowing me to do in the lives of others.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean. So do it one more time.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
No problem, no problem. All right, Perry. Listen, that fly have me like, listen, I try to keep calm.
So thank you for joining us today on The Chat. And if you like our videos, subscribe to our channel so that you can receive that alert once we have posted another one to share with you. Until then, Perry out.